All right, welcome back for part 2 of our hardware series. Today we're going to dive in and start looking at some pulley options. So a pulley is simply a wheel mounted on a bearing with an attachment point. We can use this to create mechanical advantage. We can use this to change a direction in the way that we're pulling a rope, but this is a very useful tool. This middle part here is called a sheave, and there's a specific size to that sheave that we'll come back to in a minute. This also has a swivel on the top, so our attachment point on this particular pulley has swivel. So this allows us to be able to move in our system, and there's some specific advantages, especially when we're hard linking this to something like a tripod, but that's not exactly relevant for what we're doing today. So just understand that there are some different options that you can get on pulleys, but the simplest form of pulley is literally 2 plates that swivel. You slide the rope in, put it together, and clip it with a carabiner. So you don't have to get fancy on pulleys. It just depends on what you're doing and how efficient you want to be in that. But there are some cheap, economical options out there to get you started in the pulley world. So a big thing we wanted to take a look at on pulleys is the weight rating, just like we did with carabiners. We want to make sure this is rated for the loads that we're planning to put on it. So if we're using this for rescue and we say, hey, there's one rescuer, 1 kilonewton roughly, and there's going to be a victim, 1 kilonewton, and maybe some equipment, we're at 2.5 kilonewtons or so. This is 2.3 kilonewtons is what we can put on this pulley. So if we are at 2.2 to 2.3, that roughly gives us that 10-to-1 safety ratio. Again, it's not a hard rule, but it's kind of a starting point when we're saying, hey, could this hold me, a victim, and a little bit of equipment? Yes, I'd be comfortable putting that on this pulley. So another thing we want to take a look at when we're looking at pulleys is the sheave size or the diameter. This is 1.1 inches across. So ideally, for maximum strength in our system and for maximum efficiency when we're pulling a rope across a pulley, we want a 4-to-1 ratio. So if we have a 1/2 inch rope, we want a 2-inch sheave. If I have a 1.1 sheave, I really want to have about a 1/4 inch rope I'm using on that. Now my rope size is going to be dictated based on how strong I need that rope for my situation. So a 4-to-1 pulley ratio is going to start with the size rope I need based on my weight rating. Then I'm going to have to go up from there 4 times to match my pulley to my rope. So I'm comfortable using this 1.1 on a larger rope and not have that 4-to-1 ratio, but it's not going to be as efficient and it's not going to be quite as strong under that circumstance as well. So I have a 1.1 single swivel pulley. I also have a 2-inch sheave pulley that is a double pulley, so I have 2 in here. I also have a becket that hangs off the end of this, so I have an extra attachment point. This is also a swivel pulley, and this is also an omni block, so I have quick access to open it up and throw a rope inside. Again, most pulleys you would actually have to remove your carabiner, swivel 2 plates, put the rope in there, and then you can lock it back in place. This just makes it a little bit quicker using these omni blocks. This omni block is a 1.5 inch sheave. It is a single pulley. It also is a swivel, and on the back here I have my weight ratings and all my NFPA certification stamps and all that sort of stuff. You can also get pulleys that are built into carabiners. So I have these roll clips here. This is a auto locking. I can open it up, clip this onto a rope, and it's a simple way to have a carabiner and a pulley built into one. Now you have to keep in mind that working load, because my working load on here is less than it would be on one of these larger pulleys. Don't get working load and minimum braking strength confused either, because a working load is a safe working load. Your minimum braking strength is where that starts to fail, and those are 2 completely different numbers. But this sheave is not as efficient, it's not as strong, but it is very convenient if I have a use case to clip this on there very quickly, make a haul system, and this is a 2-in-1 deal. I also have one here that's non-locking, so it's very easy to snap onto a rope. You just have to make sure that you don't need that in a situation where it needs to be absolutely secure and you have the opportunity for this gate to come open. So make sure you're using it safely if you're going to use one of these. All right, so carabiners and pulleys are your 2 most common types of hardware, especially if you are getting just a basic setup to be able to rappel off of something or gain access to someone in a wrecked vehicle down an embankment. A simple rope, a couple carabiners, and a pulley to create mechanical advantage is the starting place. I'm going to talk about some other hardware that we have here so you're made aware of it, but we're not going to go too in depth of these things. If you found any of this information on hardware helpful today, we'd really appreciate a like on this video, and make sure you are subscribed to our channel and your notifications are on so you're alerted of any future content we post. If you have any questions over any of this stuff or just want to say hey, leave us a comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. So first off, let's talk about a rope grab. So a rope grab is something that can grab rope. We can take a prusik and we can wrap this a number of times around a rope. When we pull on that, it will cinch down and hold onto that rope, allowing us to now have an access point to pull off of in the middle of a long rope without tying a knot in that rope. But we also have some simpler options. We have some hardware here, like this Petzl tib lock that will slide on this rope. I can clip this in place, and now I can create a haul system off of here, and this is locked in place. If I need to adjust it, I can move it and adjust it, but once I set it, it's locked in, and I can pull against it and it's not going to move. I can slide it up, pull down, and it locks in. So it's very easy to set and move to the point where you need it, and then once it's locked in, you can pull against it and it hangs on or grabs onto that rope. This tib lock is a great tool, but it's not rated for a lot of weight. So you have to know how you're using it so you use it safely. Typically, I would recommend starting with a rope grab that's a little more heavy duty until you really understand the forces and understand what you're applying to this really lightweight piece of hardware. So some of those heavy duty options are something like this Petzl rescue sender. This is a sender because, like the tib lock, you can move it one way easily on the rope, but when you pull it the other way, it locks out. So that's one way you can climb a rope. You can put these pieces of hardware on a rope. It slides up easily, but when you pull your body weight into it to pull up, it locks on and grabs onto that rope. So now you can climb up a rope. So this rescue ascender has two wings. We open it up. We can simply slide our rope in here and lock it down. Once we lock it down, it will easily slide up, but when we go to pull it down, it will lock onto the rope, giving us that grab. Again, it's an ascender, so we can slide up and ascend. Once we go to pull down and lock it in, it's now locked into place. If you're using these, make sure that you understand the rope size so that that size rope is rated for the hardware you're using on it. And then the last ascender or rope grab device we're going to talk about is a hand ascender. So this is a lightweight aluminum hand ascender. I'll use my thumb to operate to open this up here, throw the rope into there, and push it closed. Same thing here. I have good grip on the rope when I pull down, but I can easily slide this up the rope, and then when I pull down, it locks in again. To remove it, I open this with my thumb and I can slide it back out. Just another way to grab onto the rope, clip a carabiner or a haul system on, and I can now grab to the rope, or I can use it like an ascender to actually climb up a rope to gain access somewhere. Let's talk for a minute about descent devices. Descent devices are some form of friction device that allows you to control your speed as you're sliding down a rope. So we can tie a munter hitch in a piece of rope, and that munter hitch will give us friction that as we lower ourselves on this, the rope rubbing on itself will slow us down so we can have a controlled descent. A munter hitch is a little bit harder on your rope. It can melt your rope, specifically if you have a nylon type rope that you're using. It also tends to coil your rope really bad, but it is a great option for a very minimalistic way to create friction for a rappel so that you can descend, have a controlled descent down a rope. A couple other devices that we can use that are a little bit easier on our rope are something like a rappelling or rigging ring. We can use a rescue 8 or a figure 8 descent device. And I also have a more mechanical descent device such as the Skylotech Spark or a Petzl ID or a rig or some other commercially made system like that. The perk to something like the Skylotech Spark, which I really like, is the descent is controlled by a lever. So I have a lock here that keeps this from accidentally being activated. Push the lock in, this lever will come out, and now this is just like a throttle. The more I pull it, the faster I go. I have the tail that will come out this side that I will hold in my rappel hand, and we'll go much further into this and some of these systems when we do a rappel video in the future, but this is much more expensive, probably about $250, $300, but it's a great device to have for working hands-free. This also works on a wide variety of sizes of ropes. So I can use this really lightweight rope that I have here, rig it up inside my device, and now I can simply use my hand over here as a throttle and I can descent down. If I let go or go hands free, it'll lock out and it'll keep me from falling. Whereas any of the other devices like a Rescue 8 or a Munter hitch, if I let go of that, I'm going to continue to slide. So depending on what we're doing, we may want to put some sort of backup device on there. But now we have to mind a backup device. Without getting off too much more in the weeds on these things, we will go over a lot of that when we do a specific rappelling video here in the near future. The last thing that I want to mention before we conclude are some rigging plates. So this falls within the hardware side of our equipment here. I've got a small Petzl pawl, which is, it looks like a bear paw print or a dog's paw print. So that's why it's called the Petzl pawl. This is the medium size, this is the small. They even make a larger one with more connection points or anchor points. But what this is a rigging plate, so I can attach this to an anchor and I can clip multiple things now in line onto that anchor, and they are staying out of the way, it's neat and organized, and I don't have a bunch of those carabiners all wadded up on each other clipped into some webbing or a single carabiner. So this helps keep things organized and helps distribute that load to make it safer. Well, that was a lot of information over some basic hardware. Keep in mind some of these safety principles like weight ratings, minimum braking strength, what type of metal you're using in what situation. And consult a professional that understands this equipment before you start investing real money into some of this equipment. This is great equipment to have, but you have to understand how to use it safely and what use case you plan to use this in to know what equipment to use and how to stay safe while you're using. Well, hope this was helpful information. As always, stay vigilant and stay safe.